Presiding Officer, it's important to establish the legal basis of a referendum, but it's also important to consider the timing, the context and the effect. And I think the First Minister gave the game away in the latter part of her statement. This is actually all about the general election and the SNP having some relevance in it than actually about the Scottish people. But it's important to recognise the context of the election campaign last year. We were still a country living under COVID restrictions. Over 10,000 of our fellow citizens had lost their lives. Nicola Sturgeon said during that campaign that people who didn't support a referendum or independence through the recovery should vote for her, safe in the knowledge that COVID recovery would be her priority. COVID hasn't gone away and our recovery hasn't even started. Since that election and when Nicola Sturgeon gave that pledge, 4,000 more Scots have lost their lives. 43 in the last week have died due to COVID. There are over 700,000 Scots on NHS waiting lists, over 10,000 children and young people waiting for a mental health appointment, almost 20,000 fewer businesses in Scotland today than when the pandemic began. And this week the ONS warned that inflation could reach 11%, meaning higher bills and deepening the cost of living crisis. For households across the country, it doesn't feel like the crisis is over. Isn't it the case that the pandemic Nicola that said she wanted to pull us through is gone, and the partisan Nicola Sturgeon that wants to divide our country is back, pursuing a referendum that 2/3 of Scots don't want right now? Worse still, isn't she using the thank you she was given and the promise she made to lead us through the recovery to instead pit Scot against Scot and focus on her priority, her obsession and her purpose? Frankly, Scotland deserves better.
First Minister. Democracy is not pitting anyone against anyone. Democracy is allowing the people of the country, all of the people of the country, to choose. That is not just the right way to resolve differences of opinion on the Constitution. That is the only way to resolve these differences of opinion. It doesn't surprise me to hear the Conservatives say differently. It does still surprise me to hear Labour set its face so firmly against that fundamental concept of democracy. Anas Sarwar said it's all about the context and the timing of a referendum. He may have more credibility in saying that if his position wasn't exactly the same as the Tories, which is that Scotland should never get the right to choose independence in a referendum. And let me say, the First Minister standing here is the First Minister who does and who always has believed that the right thing for Scotland, to have the powers, the levers, the resources in our hands to chart our course in line with our values, our interests and the aspirations, ambitions we have for the country. I don't want a recovery in the mould of Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party. Anas Sarwar is right. COVID hasn't gone away. But I tell you what has happened. A Westminster Tory government that we didn't vote for has taken the funding for dealing with COVID away from this Parliament. We're seeing a Chancellor take money away from the poorest in our society. The way to build a recovery, the way to build the kind of country we want, that Anas Sarwar and I probably agree on, is to put the levers and the control of that in the hands of the people of Scotland. That is what independence is about. And as long as Anas Sarwar and his party set their face against that, then I suspect they will continue to struggle in the way that they have over the last decade and more.